Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I am your hostess for the evening. And with me, we have Brian and drumroll, Henno is back. Yay!
Yay, drum roll, Henno's back.
That's my new name.
Yeah,
Drumroll Henno.
drum roll, Henno. Yep,
Considering how little I've been on X,
yep.
maybe I'll change it.
It's like, does he
I
play,
have to go on there.
like, he play drums? Like, no, he only plays guitar. Like, why do they call him drum roll, Henno? You'd have to see him play guitar. Like, it's just
That's
you
hilarious.
beating on a guitar. Like a bongo drum. Like, oh, I see.
But how are you guys? I think we have a rule, so someone else needs to go first.
So I looked it up, and it's been almost 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
So what,
we've
three-
missed
that I was
you.
on.
Three episodes? Yeah.
We've been
Two.
losing
Yeah.
listeners
I
because
missed
Henno hasn't been on.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed 2 episodes in 2 months.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah.
Nothing.
We couldn't bring ourselves to podcast
Nothing.
without you, Henno.
We're heartbroken.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
it. It'll do nicely.
Let's see what's happened. I haven't played like so many gigs, but I did play. You know what it is? I did a lot of practicing. Let's just say, so I did my whole 2 bands at once thing, and that was really awesome. Because let's see, the last time I recorded, I would have been asked to do this other gig. So like, we had four weeks to learn 25 songs or whatever it was, and the greatest part about it was for me playing guitar. It's been a long time since I've felt like I had a voice. Like, I'll pick up a guitar and I'll noodle,
Yeah.
or I can play the notes, but I really didn't feel like I had anything to say, and that came back, and I was really excited. Because we were playing a variety of music and a lot of music that I was familiar with, but I'd never actually played before. I got into those guitar players, and I wasn't going to be able to play just like them because they're just flat out amazing. But if I could cop the feel of it, that would be enough. And so I really focused on that, and that got me into, again, anytime I try to learn something new, put my, really focus my energy into challenging myself, mentally and physically, I reap the rewards. I mean, I really do. And it even came into my bass playing where I just felt really on. And there was one night where I had something in my head that I wanted to do, and my hands just did it. And I was like, oh, I miss this so much. So that was a real treat. It was a lot of work, but it was so worth it. And then
I just have a real
raising
quick
your
question.
hand?
Yes, because I
Yeah.
don't want to interrupt you, but I do
Yeah, sure.
as I interrupt you.
It's quite all right.
Wanted to know, for someone who's like very unknowledgeable about the whole gig thing, can you walk us through, because you've joined into a couple different bands at different times. Can you kind of walk through your stages of when you join a band and when you guys actually gig?
Well, like, for example, this one was the guy, Johnny V, who I was playing with earlier. We were trying to do this like 80s project, and it just wasn't going to work out. The musicians involved, it just wasn't their thing. And so we said, we can't do this. Let's try this again maybe next year. And so Johnny's like, I already booked these gigs. I need to come up with something. So he called former musicians he used to play with and people that he played in this valley. And it turned out they were all guys that I've heard their names. I've never met any of them personally. I've seen some of them play. I know they're great, top-notch musicians. So Johnny just called me or sent me an email one day and said, hey, would you like to join us? Because their former kind of band leader guy died in a car crash, I guess, a couple of years ago. And he was extremely talented, very well known, very well liked in the community. And Johnny Zarkos, who was going to be playing the lead, was going to have to do it all himself. And it's just a bit much because their old friend really, he really carried a lion's share of it. So the way it kind of comes to me is that, all right, send me the songs. So they send me the songs. Then I have to figure out which of these, and I'm not kidding, it was 26 songs.
Wow.
I have to start figuring out which of these I need to learn. And I know not only do I need to learn how the rhythm guitar parts are played, I need to learn lead guitar parts. But until we rehearse, I don't know what the other guitar player is doing.
Oh, okay.
So I need, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what his thing is. And then it just depends on how active that musician is. And Zarkos has got, he's got his thing he does in life. He just kind of shows up and rocks. And so we had our first rehearsal. So I had a weekend that I just targeted whatever it was, 7 to 10 songs, things that were somewhat challenging. Something. Of course, we didn't play a single one of them when I got to rehearsal.
Of course.
Of course, right.
So now I'm just having to just follow along and wing it. But this is the part where I have a lot of imposter syndrome as a musician, just because I've never felt like I've been talented. I've always had to work really hard, and I've been around those musicians that are really talented. Now, some of them do work really hard, and
Right.
others, they just have a talent.
Right.
And so I've always tried to make up for it in other ways. And one of them is reading the room, learning how I can fit in without stepping on anybody else's toes, how to be a team player, how to be a part of it and step up when I need to. And I really felt I had an opportunity to do that here, and I did. And that first night, it was very apparent that even though we had roughly whatever it was 5 weeks, we're not going to have a problem. We played through the songs. Were they perfect? No, not at all. But everyone was clearly professional, and you have that confidence instantly. So then that means for me, I take notes. I keep a binder with me. I take little notes all the time, because most other people don't. They just figure, we're just going to make this happen. But again, I want to work hard at this thing.
Yeah.
So from there, then it's just that's my first opportunity to talk to the guitar player. And like, we're playing certain Grateful Dead songs. Are you playing the Jerry Garcia part? Are you playing the Bob Weir part? Which ones are you doing so I can focus on them? Because the weekend before I was learning all the parts.
Mm.
But that's a benefit for me because then I know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So once Zark told me what he was doing, then I'm like, okay, I can run with these songs. And then there were things where it's like, hey, I put in the work, I did the work on this, I've got this. You don't need to worry about this. And that everyone was right away like, okay, cool, you take that. There was everything felt very comfortable and fun, and that was the most important thing. And then from there, it's just, we practiced when we could. Everyone has scheduling issues. You can't practice all the time. So you just got to put in the work. As we got closer to the gig, it became very apparent that I was going to also have to do all the sound, which
Fun.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on doing, but
Right.
things happened.
Yeah.
The good news was a week before we happened to play at the same venue in my other band. So I already we have digital equipment now that just remembers what the settings were. So I just changed some things around and programmed it for a different band. And when I got there, and this was kind of a fun thing, like in the meantime, I'm like, for example, one thing, we're playing a Grateful Dead song. It's got a famous Jerry Garcia solo. There is no way I can recreate the solo. Most people people that aren't Deadheads don't realize that Jerry Garcia was, and I didn't realize this either because I was never a Dead fan until much later in my life, that he is an absolute monster musician. To the point of he does things that are physically challenging. He is so fast, but you would not know that if you saw late 80s Jerry, when he just wanted to chill and play things kind of mellow all the time. But in the 70s and multiple genres. And so we get into this song, and this is kind of fun that Sharon just walked in. I was playing, the Dead did a lot of covers, clearly. So that was the other part about. So as I'm learning these songs, I don't know what version I'm learning oftentimes.
Oh, yeah, because they performed
Right?
stuff different night to night, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't they?
Well, like, for example, there was a Johnny Cash song on the list. I learned the Johnny Cash song. We were playing the Grateful Dead cover of the Johnny Cash song.
Oh,
It's in a totally different key, and it sounds completely different.
Oh, wow.
got
Right?
it.
So then it's okay. So then I had to go through, and it became very clear to me that most of the songs on the list were all Grateful Dead versions of something.
Okay.
So what it came down to at the end was Tom Petty, the Grateful Dead, Rolling Stones, a couple of Beatles tunes, a couple of rando tunes, but for the most part it was these big chunks. So where I was going with this is I sat down and I can't learn this guitar solo note for note, so I'm just gonna try to cop the style. So I'm playing this, and Sharon all of a sudden walks in and sits down. Now, when I'm in here noodling, she avoids this side of the house like the plague, because it's usually, like she likes to make fun of me.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden she sits down. I go, what's up? She's like, why'd you stop? I'm like, what do you mean, why'd I stop? You never walk in here unless it's something like you need to talk about something. She's like, no, you're playing Johnny Cash. I'm like, you know this song? She's like, my mom and dad loved this music. And she's like, I really love what you're doing here.
Oh, cool.
I love what you're learning, because it reminded her of growing up.
Awesome.
So so now another example would be Tom Petty. I'm going to learn that song note for note, right? When it comes to the solos or the main riffs or whatever it is, you as the listener wants to hear that. You've heard it so many times on the radio. It needs to sound like this.
Right.
So that I'll learn note for note. And then other things like most rhythm guitar parts aren't that big of a deal. But if you're playing Grateful Dead, Bob Weir is a mind-blowing rhythm guitar player. So here I am learning new things. I'm learning new styles. I'm adapting it to other places. I'm learning things note for note where I need to. Other places where we can just fudge, I'm fudging, and and really having a good time. And the main thing is I get there and I'm working, right? I'm doing, like, I fill the van. I got subwoofers, I got speakers, I got everything. The band shows up, they're setting up, and like I'm in work mode. I'm not even thinking about performing. And I get up on the stage, it's like everything's last minute. Okay, let's do this. And Zarkos looks at me, he's like, okay, what's the first chord? I'm so nervous. And I looked at him like, I didn't say it, but I was thinking to myself, of course you're nervous. You haven't played in 2 years live.
Right. And you've
But
been
I've been
distracted
doing it
by all
all
the
the
sound,
time.
and you've been distracted
Yeah.
by doing the sound stuff too. So I would
I
think,
didn't even have time to think about it.
yeah, that's what I mean. It's like you
Yes.
can't sit there and go, oh man, because you're busy doing other stuff.
Yeah,
No, I
and so then it's just whatever I got is what I got.
Yeah.
So one
And-
question
and-
for you: how much
Yeah.
is your cover? Like, how much would someone pay to see you guys?
Oh, these are all free shows.
Okay, that's perfect. That goes right into my point. I want to make sure the audience understands everything you just said that you did to go
For free.
and
Yeah.
play a free show for people because
So-
that's how much you love it.
Yeah.
This is how much we got paid, $700, which is
Yeah.
actually pretty good these days. They gave me $200 because I did all the sound.
Mm.
Otherwise, it would have been split up evenly. And
Right.
everyone's gotten really good about that. My own band too, Doghouse. They're always paying. They're always like, they'll ask me like, do you want extra money or not? Like we played a PTA event last week, right? And we didn't want to give away the gig. We wanted to get paid something, so we said $400. And I was supposed to end up getting 200 of it, and then everyone else gets $100. And I just said, let's just split it. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was the PTA. I mean,
Right.
come on. There were kids everywhere, people having a good time.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't that big of a setup. But yeah, if you look at what, like, I spent 5 weeks spending every opportunity I had learning and learning and learning. I did 2 gigs. The next night was awesome. It was down in the next town down, and they tend to be a little bit more blue collar and a little bit more hard hitting on the booze. And wow, it was like at the end of the gig, there was lots of drunk gig glory. People like, you guys are the best. I love you.
Yeah.
But it was fun. But the cool thing is all the guys in the band were like, so are we going to keep doing this?
I'm
so-
sure it becomes quite addicting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, none of these guys have pretty much done much in a few years, and hardly anything. And so everyone's like, and like the drummer, who's the hardest to read, he was the one that said, if not just for my own sanity, clearly people enjoyed it. So let's keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And in the meantime, I'm learning other songs for Doghouse and where I'm playing bass. But it all ties together, and it's all about loving music. And the last 2 months have been an absolute blast. And one thing that happened in the middle of all of that was Sharon saw a Subaru, and I've always wanted a Subaru. I'll be fine with another Ford, but I really wanted a Subaru. And because every time I get into someone's Outback or whatever, and I just shut the door, and it's just like, wow, I like this car. Well, she saw a Forester, and they have a version called the Wilderness now, and it's made for where I live. It's for being in the mountains and heavy snow and mud and everything. And she sent me a picture of it, and I was like, that wasn't my plan was to pay off this one credit card I have. I'm just slamming it with all the money I have.
Sure.
And I thought I'd have it paid off by the end of the year. And I was like, well, you know what? I don't have to pay all that on this. Why don't I go down and see? And so I went down and I went to 2 dealerships, and I decided I was going to do a lease because they're coming out with a hybrid in a few years. and this way I can just basically, I'm basically just borrowing a car, and then I can turn it in and just get another one.
Right.
And I don't, and hopefully I won't have to pay for any repairs other than, oil change or whatever it is. And so the first thing is I want to have a good down payment, because I want to have I'm not a wheeler dealer. I don't like to spend all day at a dealership.
Yeah.
So I come up with a dollar amount that I can afford, and I go in and they make money off of me.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. It's
Dude,
not my thing.
There's something to be said for the time and the peace of mind. It is so mind-numbing to sit there for hours and hours.
For what? Like maybe $30 a month.
Yeah.
It's like, this is why I have a good job.
Yeah, right.
Like, what was I going to get? Another $50 off?
Yeah.
And leases are pretty set. There's
right.
not a lot of negotiation on leases. So I went in. I'll tell you how much of a sucker I was to them. I'd already put the vehicle on my insurance, because I put that was the other thing, is I put a deposit down. I had to. Nobody has them in inventory. They're
Right.
selling like crazy,
Yeah.
And so I went down there and I drove home with a new car, and it's my first new car in 20 years. But like I say, I wanted to have a good down payment, to at least, because I knew they were going to hit me with all the extra whatevers, and I'm like, let's just cover all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I said, I've got the convertible that I could sell, but that's going to be kind of tough in the middle of doing all these gigs. I got my motorcycle, which I'm done with. My mom was like, yay. But that doesn't take as much room. But in the meantime, I was like, I sat down at my desk where I'm at now, and I looked and I was like, okay, I haven't used that in at least a year. Listed. I haven't used this in at least a year. Listed. I haven't even looked at this thing. And it was like, boom, stuff was selling like crazy. And when I was looking back, there were some things, I sold it for more than I paid for it.
That's great when you
Which I
can
was
do that, isn't
amazed
it?
at.
I love when I can do that. Yeah. Like have something for 3 or
'Cause I
4
was-
years and then sell it and make money off of it.
Yeah.
That's
and
fantastic.
even if it was $20, I was still like,
Yeah.
wow, I got a great deal on this. So in the end, I had a good down payment, and I started clearing stuff out. And again, it's this thing where I'm reluctant. We all have our reluctances, the things that we should do. We should all over ourselves.
Right.
Whether it's the gym or mental health stuff or physical health stuff or whatever it is. And mine is keeping stuff.
Right. Well, and you did even
And
better,
I
right?
just-
You took stuff that you weren't doing, like you said, stuff you weren't doing with, and you turned it into something you're definitely going to use. And
Exactly.
and something you wanted. It's not just, this
Yeah.
is just a car. You actually got to pick a car you kind of wanted.
I want this car,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Everything about it was like, this is the right car. And once I start, and like these things go, once you get into your groove, you're good.
Yeah.
Right? Like it got really easy when stuff started, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. You got to break the seal. Once
Yeah.
you break the seal, you're like, I'm eating all the chips.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm selling all the stuff.
Yeah.
So
Sharon comes
and
home,
the
you got
other
the
part of
house
it-
for sale.
Yeah.
Like, whoa,
And,
this is too far.
Yeah, exactly. And then, the gigs started happening again. I got my last 2 gigs this weekend for Labor Day. And so things kind of took a little bit of a backseat, but I got to keep selling, some stuff, and I'm going to stay on this because it's not only, it's clutter physically. I can create room for more. I can, create room for what, there was something liberating about it. And then in the middle of all this, I also went home to California, and I just went, those things where you say, oh yeah, I'll come out and see you at, blah, blah, blah. And then you never go see that person or whatever. And
Yeah.
I realized I hadn't gone home in summertime since I left. It was
Oh,
like the
wow.
year after I left California was the last time I went home in the summer.
That makes sense. I mean,
Well,
all
it
the
was-
time I've known you, it's been a different time of year. It's not been this time
Yeah,
of year.
it's always
Yeah.
March and November.
Right.
Always.
Wow.
The exception was June for our wedding. But,
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's never been the summer. So I didn't realize we got these amazing deals on direct flights to San Francisco. So I'm like, all right. I told my mom I would go. I'm like, I need to do this. So I look at the flight. It was $400 round trip from Haley to San Francisco.
Hmm.
Like, I got up in the morning and I was having lunch with my mother
Yeah.
in the
Oh my
house.
gosh.
Yeah.
Like, it was amazing. And I went and saw more friends this time. But mainly, again, I did some things around the house for her. I hung out with my family. I hung out with my mom, and I had some, we had great conversations, including those really hard to have ones, about, okay, so, I know you've got your end of life stuff, with Kaiser, I know the directives, that's all there, but, where are we at with the trust? And, and they're difficult conversations, but you need to have them.
Yeah.
And just even just as a reminder. So we had those talks and just general, it was just nice to be around and that thing. But, and this, if we have a topic on this, I will mention this one thing is, I went and saw a friend of mine, I wanted to go see a friend of mine, and I'm not saying this is a negative. I'm going to bring this up as actually a positive. We got on the phone, and this is not the first time. This is the second time, and I didn't say anything for an hour and a half almost.
Oh, wow.
One day, I was driving home from Salt Lake City. I hardly said a word for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And I didn't know what this was, but my friend was clearly having some difficult things in life. And they were all coming out, and sometimes emotionally. And sometimes, and it would just, and she had to go, but you could, all of a sudden it was like, there's something I need to do. And another half hour would go by. And I mean, I would occasionally say something, but for the most part, it was just a nonstop. And it wasn't venting, it was something else, because everything was kind of painful and it reminded me of trauma. And so I looked up what this might be, and I saw the term trauma dump. And that there is a difference between venting and trauma dumping.
Yeah.
And the reason this is not a negative is because we did get together finally in person, and it wasn't like that. It was a conversation, and I got to share my thoughts on the things that were being shared with me. Otherwise, there was no, how are you doing? How are you? I didn't get asked any questions.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't even an ask of an opinion. There didn't seem to be any desire to find a solution. But when we sat down in person, those things did happen. I got to share my experience with something. There were questions asked. There was reciprocation, and it was appropriate to the time. And what I learned is, when I saw this trauma dumping, I have now mentioned it to people, and Sharon had the same experience with one of her friends. And this is something that can really adversely affect relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fascinating thing, and I just wanted to touch on it briefly as part of my little share. Is if we talk more about it, but it's something that I need to look at for myself. I don't do this, but it's a reminder of topics being appropriate for the situation, that you actually don't hold other people hostage.
Yeah.
That you ask them if they have time, and then you actually show some interest in what they have to say as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, we ended up having a great meeting, and I was so happy to see her, and it ended up being it was a very much of a positive when we met face to face.
Yeah. I would think so, because you probably,
but,
once you get all that out of you, now you can be in a place to talk. A lot of times, sometimes it's just, you just got to get all that out of your head. Now we can, have a conversation and really figure out what I want to do here and what I might need help with or whatever. But sometimes you just gotta
But the thing that was
get it all out of you.
there was no getting it out. It doesn't end.
Yeah, right.
That was the thing that was interesting to me. It was circular, and also it segued everywhere.
Yeah,
And there would all of a sudden other things would come up, and the past would come up, and
yeah,
there was no. I in a lot of ways it was fascinating to me, and I also I felt very compassionate that clearly I need somebody wants me to hear this,
hmm
not necessarily for feedback, but they need to let something out.
yeah,
And I try to, if I'm in a place where I can be there for someone like that, I will. However, and that was the last thing I was going to bring up about that is I got to tell her about it. I said, "Have you ever heard of this term?"
yeah,
And I said, "This is what happened. It's not what's happening now.
right.
It's something else." And it was, I'm really, the last 2 months have been about, for me, I'm extremely grateful that I'm in a position where I can, I know it's a car and I could be putting that money to my retirement, but you know what? I want a freaking new car.
Yeah,
And
right.
so I'm grateful that I can get a new car, right?
Right.
I'm grateful that I'm able to be in a group with other musicians and people that I didn't even know and have a wonderful time and collaborate with others. I'm so grateful that I have these friendships that go back way back when, and we can still talk to each other honestly and openly and not hold anything back.
Yeah.
And really, there's also going to be a change with my band Doghouse, and that group of we all sat and had a conversation, and we're honest with each other and understanding with each other and caring and loving, and it regardless of what else is going on in my life, I look at those. I mean, what frustrates us most? Our relationships, our family. And what did I saw family. I had fun. My relationships. There's nothing worse than musicians when it comes to attitude. And I had fun there. And financially things are okay. Yay, thank you, life.
Yeah.
It's whatever bad things happen, I'd rather focus on these good things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what's going on with me for the last couple months.
That's amazing.
Mm.
That is so amazing. I love and thank you for giving us more details, because so often we go to the local bar or we go to, to listen to some live music. And sometimes it's great, sometimes not so much. We sit with our friends, our backs to the artists. We drink our beers, maybe get up and dance a little bit, then we go home. And we don't necessarily recognize the passion that some of the musicians have and the time and the energy and the effort that gets put forth for that show for us. When we're not paying the ticket, it's very easy to just discount the whole thing and just not give it any sort of reverence. So by hearing that and hearing your passion of just one artist, because we all know not every artist is the same way, but just by hearing your passion for it and what you go through for your love of the art, hopefully it definitely for me puts things in perspective in a different way, and hopefully it does for others too.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of talking really loudly with your friend while standing next to the band, maybe you either take it outside
But you know what? That's okay. That's totally okay. We don't mind that. One venue we played at, you could hear the audience. Like, you can't not hear it. Everyone's having a conversation.
Yeah.
But what's great is, I would say this is, go have a good time, be outside. But then at the end of the night, throw $5 in their tip jar, or even just go up to them afterwards and just say, "Hey, thanks a lot for playing."
Yeah.
Even that,
Yeah.
one of the things that happened with me that was really, just got me is this guy goes up to Tom, this was a Doghouse, and says, "Hey, lived 2 blocks away, and I wasn't coming down, but all of a sudden I heard this song, and it was like a nice, just like beautiful harmonies, and the music. We have Americana and country is so huge here, and people are just kind of getting tired of it. And so this person says, it reminded me of 90s of music I really loved, and you guys had these amazing harmonies, so I thought I'd come down here and check it out. And Tom asked, do you remember what the song was? And the guy said, like, oh, it kind of sounded like this. And Tom says, oh, was it Never Walk Away? He's like, yeah, that was it. That was the song. It's a song I wrote.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And this dude's 2 blocks away at his house and goes, I need to go down and check out this band.
Right.
That's amazing.
And that says something also about Tom. The guys that I play with are like, hey, this is a song that Henno wrote. Let's play it.
Yeah.
And let's play it like we mean it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was so amazing. Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah, it's weird because I was curious what your take on that was, because it always bugs me. Like, I understand, like, when people play at bars, you're going to have people talking, right? Because not everybody who's going to that location is there for the music. They're there to talk with their friends and have a time at the bar or whatever. And there's also a lot of times people, especially now, where you can, these bars put up, hey, here's the music acts for the week. You can go to their whatever page online and hear some of their music, and go, oh man, that sounds awesome. Let's go enjoy this person's music. But it's like, it bugs the heck out of me when people sit right in front of the musicians or whatever, and they talk, and they talk loudly. And it's like, hey, you're making it hard for other people to hear the musician. If you want to talk loud, it's like, move away from them at least, so it doesn't feel like you're competing with what they're doing. Like, that's always bugged me. Or same with comedians, like when people talk during a comedy show, and it's like, hey, shut up, like we're, that's a little different, because usually at comedy shows, you're there for the comedy only. But,
right.
Yeah. This is outdoors too, so it's it's an opportunity for people to come out, and socialize. And like one of the gigs, both of the gigs I did week to week, it's also a fundraiser. So they have raffles.
Oh, okay.
And so it's very family friendly. So the best. Sorry, I got to segue one more. These little girls come up, and they were one of them looked like she was like 4, and the other one probably might have been like 7, and they were just staring at me, and I was in the middle of I was busy doing stuff, so I couldn't give them any time. And then finally their raffle came up, and theirs came up again, and they're looking at me, and I lean down, and the girl says something, but can't understand what she's saying. And I look at her older sister, and her older sister looks at me and says, she says you look like Jesus. Because my hair was down and the goatee. I was dying. I'm just like, well, Jesus loves you.
Yeah.
And then there was this one little boy that came up. I'm in the middle of a guitar solo, and this little boy walks up on stage, and he just starts checking stuff out. He wasn't like getting into my and stuff. I got my pedals down there. He very respectfully walked around. He was like grooving, and then stands at the front of the stage looking out at everybody. And then eventually, like, somebody who knows him came and grabbed him. But I'm like, that little kid has got a future.
Yeah, I was gonna say, fast forward like 15 years, that kid's playing a gig. Yeah.
Yeah. No fear, standing like there's men. I mean, we're grown men on stage, old men. Let's just be real here. Everyone here's in their 50s,
right?
And this little boy is just like, yeah, man, I'm on stage. Yeah,
got to hand him a tambourine or something,
Oh, seriously, like it was. Oh God, it was so great.
Yeah,
I just live for that. Live for that.
That's awesome.
I'm really gotten into going. I call it man in a guitar, guy in a guitar music, where I go to. There's a few different places around town that it's exactly what it sounds like. It's usually one person and their guitar, maybe somebody else joining them, and they sing obviously and play. Well, I happened to be at one of the beer places around the corner from me, And I'll go by myself. I'll go with people. It doesn't matter to me. And this time I was on my own. So I'm sitting at the bar, enjoying my beer, listening to the guy play. Well, all of a sudden I hear this song. It's My Old Apartment. And I am a huge Bare Naked Ladies fan. Absolutely love their stuff, especially the midsection stuff, Gordon, Maroon, all that stuff. Well, he starts playing that song immediately, I know. So I am not afraid to show that I'm into music. So I'm at the bar and I'm swinging along with it and I'm singing along and I'm just having the best little one-person party ever. And he's loving it because everybody else is just kind of talking and whatever. And he sees that he's like, "Oh, you like that, huh?" And I'm like, "Yep." I said, "I'm a huge Bare Naked Lady fan. You did it justice." He's like, "Well, they're actually one of my, one of my influences." He's like, I like to do their stuff. They influence a lot of different things. So he ended up playing a couple more Bare Naked Lady songs for me. And before I left, so I gave him a tip, obviously, before I left. And he's like, here's my CD. And, this was about a year ago and stuff. So I really don't have a CD player, but I'm not going to say no to the man. So
Right.
I grabbed this. So I told him, I'm like, thank you. He's like, you want to check out number 9, because that's the track that I was listening to Bare Naked Ladies nonstop. And that's kind of my homage to them. He's like, I think you're really going to like it. And, it was just such a cool experience. I just was really vibing with this guy and his music, and I was just feeling it. And I didn't care. I don't care if people are looking at me like I'm crazy, that I'm sitting at the bar by myself singing along to the guy playing. Mm-hmm. I had the best time, and that's all that mattered to me in that moment. And honestly, even now to this day, one of my favorite public speakers, authors, and professor, and all that good stuff. His name was Leo Biscaglia. And folks, if you've not heard from this man or read any of his books, he was really big in the 70s through early 90s, I think is when he passed away. But he would always talk about, he was a very positive person. And one of his stories, he said, is he would go down to the park and dance in the leaves. And he loved leaves. So he'd go down the park and dance in the leaves. And the little old ladies would sit on their park bench and watch him. And they'd look at each other and go, that crazy Biscaglia dancing with the leaves again. And just shake their heads at him. He's like, but you know what? I was having fun dancing in the leaves. I was having the best time ever. They're on the park bench just shaking their head at me. Who's winning in this, basically?
Yeah.
And it was that I listened to him a lot when I was in my teen years and stuff, and it really influenced me because I'm like, yes, sing that song, dance in those leaves, do whatever the heck you want to do to make you happy and not hurt anybody else. Yeah. And it was a huge influence on me. And people who know me and know how I live my life, you can 100% see his influence on my choices in my life. But yeah, passion is an amazing thing. And when it's harnessed in the arts or anything else that you do, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
You'll never feel more alive, more in tune with the world, and more grounded at the same time. It's just amazing.
Well, it's cool too. Like, you never know, especially like the guy with the guitar thing. One of my favorite parts about that is that you never know what you're going to get from that person. Like when we were a couple weeks ago, we were up the road from where I live. Me and Jen and some other people hung out. And the guy playing there, I see him setting his stuff up, and he's got a Gojira shirt on. And I'm like, Gojira's a heavy metal band. Like, this dude's rocking an acoustic. Like, wonder what he's going to play. And across the night, I couldn't hear everything he was playing because there were some loud people in between me and him. But I did hear him play at least 2 Nirvana songs and some other stuff. But it was it's more appropriate to play on an acoustic. He wasn't playing like Smells Like Teen Spirit or something on his acoustic. But it was, but he, from what I could hear, he sounded good. But it was just like when I saw that shirt, I was kind of like, at first I'm like, okay, is that a Godzilla shirt or is that like the band? Type shirt. And I was like, no, that's the band. And then I'm like, okay, this might be interesting because that's a metal band. You don't normally see people walking up wearing metal shirts playing acoustic at places, so. But from what I could
But
tell,
you
he
know
was
what I
good.
love the most? Well, the reason I love one man and a guitar type players, and it could be a woman too. I don't mean to generalize, but um, it's because they're not playing to sell you on something. And yes, that is an end goal at some point, merch or their CDs or introduce you to their music. But it's more that they want to show you something. And that's so beautiful. And
Yeah.
if you think about that, because they want to show you their take on their music or how they can maneuver something around and put their own spin on it. And it's a very much a very organic, here, let me show you this.
Yeah.
I find this cool. Let me
Yeah.
share. And it's
Well, like the
that
guy after
give and take.
you paired with that guy over Bare Naked
Mhm.
Ladies, he went off
Mhm.
his like air quote set list and was playing
Yes.
for you basically because he reached you. So it was like, well, I know she's listening, So and he's passionate
Yeah.
about it. You guys met somewhere, and then it was like, let's let me play this stuff. So and maybe he wasn't going to play that stuff, but it was like, oh, cool. Well, this'll
Yeah.
land. So that's cool.
Yeah, I got to one of the things I also threw on my plate when I got back from California was I had volunteered to go play at it's a organization within Alcoholics Anonymous
Mm.
that their primary purpose is to bring literature and books and pamphlets and that stuff into hospitals and institutions.
Mm.
And so they have an annual picnic, and it just happened to be the week I'd gone and picked up my car. We'd already had another gig with Doghouse, so I had no time to practice. And it was me solo acoustic.
Mm.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And
Henno was one man in a
But-
guitar. Yeah.
Yes,
or-
he
like
was.
seriously, and I got down there. I had not practiced at all. I had nothing. I had a book of songs, that I know.
Right.
If I remembered some of the guitar parts. So I was like thumbing through as I was up there on the stage. But the thing about it is the first thing I did is I identified myself as one of you.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you for letting me be of service. And, and I related playing, me being up there with the fact that when I was drinking, there wasn't a lot of music in my life, like
Yeah. Right.
literally
Yeah.
and figuratively. And so at that point, it's just kind of like, all right, let's see what happens. Like, all right, higher power. Let's see.
Let's go on a ride.
Yep.
I have never sung better. There were songs I was playing. I'm like, can I really hit this note? Well, let's find out.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, what happened? And it was so awesome. I was like, all right, I'm on a roll. And even if I screwed up, I didn't care.
Right.
It was just but I relate to what you said just now, Jen, because there is nothing more pure in expression. There's nothing to hide behind. It's, and I even wore my world's okayest guitar player T-shirt just, because
Yeah.
like we've had some live music where I work on Sundays, and there's been some young musicians in there, musicians where I'm just jaw dropped on the floor, like the talent in their voice and in their songwriting. I was like, okay, I might as well quit now. No, I'm not, because I have my own voice.
Yep.
And no, it's definitely not like theirs.
Mhm.
It's not even anywhere near there. But you know what? I still have to. And that's what I thanked everyone at the event is thank you for letting me come and express myself in the way that, and be part of this event in the way that I love.
Right.
No matter what, I love doing this. Good, bad, like me, don't like me. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We have to find our place where we can feel like we can be true to ourselves. And I've always loved music, and I will always love music.
Well, and like you were just saying, throwing one of those things that years ago me and Henno probably would have been like hearing is the old comparison is the thief of joy. Right? Like, so if you start comparing yourself to whatever these other people can do, and it's like now you're sucking the joy right out of your own music. Like, what are you doing?
Yep.
This is something you love.
Yep.
And like you said, just because they can be really good doesn't mean there's no room for you. And it doesn't mean you're not good also. Maybe people prefer you to the other person. You never know that stuff too. So it's just, whatever your voice is, whether it's art, music, any of that stuff, it's like try not to let anyone silence your voice.
Yeah, silence your voice. That's the truth right there.
It's so powerful, and often we forget because society wants us to fit into a mold. And when we don't fit into that mold, it can be very difficult because you feel very alone. But there is this beautiful thing that happens, that when you come into that moment where you just are in sync with everything around you, you're doing something you love, people are there enjoying it and supporting you and giving you the good vibes back. And it doesn't matter, like you said, your voice could crack, you could miss a note. Those little things, they don't matter when you have that sharing of passion between people.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it all the time with sports people or musicians, or pretty much anyone that has any sort of draw and has the crowds coming to them. If you watch them, the ones that are really love what they do are so excited and in love with their fans as much as their fans are in love with them. It's this perfect, pure exchange of emotion. It's, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting your autograph. Thank you so much for your autograph. It's like, thank you so much for being here and letting me do what I want to do. It's this perfect moment that only really comes when you're a kid naturally. These things are so rare when you're an adult that when you get those moments, those are the ones you gotta grab onto and sit in. And you're not gonna get those moments by being like everyone else. You get those moments by being your true self. And it's just awe-inspiring me, because I forget that so often. And when I hear those stories like you shared, Henno, it just brings it all back home that no, it's okay to be different. It's okay not to be perfect as long as you are being you. It's just, I don't know. So that's going to be honestly my share, because I know I've talked a lot on this, but
I
So
just
I
feel
like
like
that.
we've had a conversation. I don't really feel like, so it's whatever. If you've got more to share, share.
My neighbor said that.
Life is pretty.
I was gonna say my neighbor calls it the Q gene. The Q gene, quirky gene.
The Q gene?
Q gene,
Yes.
yeah. And that people with the Q gene recognize others with the Q gene.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
And it makes a lot of sense. And I've always kind of considered myself quirky and little left of center. And while it bothered me for a long time, but now I'm getting to the point now that I can embrace it and really enjoy it. And a lot of that is learning to be around the people who encourage that, who don't see it as a negative. They see it as actually a positive. They like the fact that I'm a little quirky. And a lot of that's been coming, I mention it many times on this podcast, but the last year and a half of my life, I have so come into my own. I'm rooted. I know who I am. I know what I want, and I know what I deserve. And not in the over the top aggressive aspect of things. It's all of a sudden my insides, I feel quieter. I feel quieter and more confident, and I feel comfortable in my own skin, which I've never felt that way before.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the thing I start seeing myself doing these things. Like at work, there was a situation that was very bad for me, and I wanted to run. And I thought about it, and I'm like, no, I can't do this. So not only did I address the situation, I addressed the situation in a professional manner. I did my research. I got my words together. I wrote it out so that I felt confident and comfortable in my message to make sure that my message would come across the way I wanted it to. In the conversation, I ended up having to take a moment because I could tell I was getting way overworked on the situation, and I needed to take a minute, take a deep breath, recenter, and then I was able to move forward. Because I was able to address the situation in such a way, I got my desired result. And I didn't feel, just to not, disclose everything, but I did evoke the ADA. I don't like considering myself having a disability. Who does?
Mm-hmm.
But my mental health, my bipolar, is a disability.
Mm-hmm.
And the situation I was being put in was dramatically affecting my mental health. And so I'm like, well, I guess I'll use the ADA card. And I'm like, no. This is not using the ADA card. This is standing up for yourself, telling them that they are not providing an adequate workplace for you to succeed and thrive. And if you go down this path, Jen, you're going to need to make sure that what you want, because they're going to want to know what you want. And you have to make sure that what you want is truly A, what you want, and B, realistic to get me to my goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And I laid it out very professionally, very succinctly, which we all know that's a difficult thing for me. But I did it in such a way that I am so proud of myself. I never, ever would have been able to do this in the past, or even think to try it in the past.
Yeah.
I would have been too ashamed or shy or embarrassed or second guessing myself. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And, oh, I'm probably being over dramatic, or all the things that I would do to hold myself back. And I didn't get in my own way. I didn't let myself stop me from doing what I felt is right. Now, do other people feel that I did the right thing? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
But does it matter to me?
Nope.
Not at all. In the past, it would have. Now, no. I'm just proud of myself for standing up for myself, standing my ground, and not being over anything. I was a strong, independent, confident, educated woman. And there's nothing like that. No matter what ended up happening in that whole scenario, and it's still going on and we're still working through it, I never, ever, ever thought that would have been me. But yet, it is me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of different things, and a lot of different changes, and a lot of different growth going. But it just, I don't know. I'm just amazed with myself, and I don't want to sound conceited, but I'm just amazed with myself, if that makes sense.
Right.
Sounds so damn conceited coming out of my mouth, but yeah. And at this point,
You know
I
what
finally
though?
got
It is, but that's okay. Even if
Yeah.
it is, that's okay. You're feeling yourself, and that's all right. Especially as somebody who's
Yes.
not doing this all the time. If you were, like we've joked plenty of times on here with the "do you know who I am" situation,
Mhm.
like if you were constantly going around doing those things, it's a little different, but that's not you. And there's nothing wrong with, flaunting your, peacocking a little bit occasionally.
Well, because we have to look at the fact that sometimes self-care can come across as selfish.
Yep.
But it's not. It's self-care, and the same thing is you can be proud of yourself without false pride.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
What
point.
what I need to worry about is false pride. That's what gets me in trouble, right?
Yeah,
That's what was part of my alcoholism, was false pride. Me sharing wins, and that's all part of leaving that behind. And like you said, I got to throw up my flag and own myself, because there was a lot of years of where it was all BS.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And today, my ex finally got on board, and we got the disillusion paperwork through.
Wow.
Sorry, the delusion.
Wow. Freud just went.
Yeah. That's why I was trying not to laugh, and I was trying not to so hard. I just couldn't help myself. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, anyway, the paperwork. I got it together.
Yeah. Disillusionment. You were saying it, but it's just the first go at it was the slip on the Freudian slip was mwah, chef's kiss.
I was actually going for the word divorce, but it's not a divorce, it's a disillusionment.
Right, okay.
So, so I've had the paperwork done since January, but he has not been in a position to be able to take care of it. So he messaged me today, and so I went through and I revamped it to be current, and I shot it back over to him because it's time. And when I did that, I thought I would feel a lot more than I did, but it was almost like just almost watching someone else on TV. You know, it was, and not in a bad way and not in a good way. It was just kind of like, okay.
I think
I sent it over to him.
You've already gone through the stages of grief, at least the emotional part, in a lot of ways already, because it's been it's not like it was last week or something. It's been a little bit,
right?
And you've moved through it, like you said, over the last X amount of time. You've been moving forward, and seeing what you did and didn't like about situations. And so I it makes sense that you wouldn't. It's got to feel a little weird though to not feel much, right?
It is, and it's one of the things that as soon as I heard it for the first time, I was 100% on board, which is the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love and hate is apathy.
Yes.
And that's really where I felt today when I did it. There was no love. There was no hate. It was just apathy. It was like, okay, yeah, I guess we didn't even get this done. Here you go.
Right.
You're
in acceptance.
Yeah. And
I
I don't wish him any ill by any stretch of imagination. I want to see him soar, and I want to see him achieve whatever he would like to achieve.
Yeah.
And I hope he feels the same for me. But if he doesn't, that's whatever.
None of your business, right? Yeah.
No, it's another chapter of my life that has been closed. And this is just another signature,
Mm-hmm.
We got to submit it. And there's going to be, I think it's like a minimum of 90 days or something like that to go through the whole process.
Yeah. You're basically just at the formality stage now. Just finishing all that.
Yeah, they're going to, honestly, the courts may have more issues than we would about everything because we're done. We just need them to sign off on it. But if they take a look at our agreement, if they don't agree with our agreement, then they could try to do, but neither one of us were like, no, we're done. It just sign us off and we're good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, life's still moving on, and and there's definitely the struggles and trying to keep myself balanced, which is always fun, as we all know. It's just life's just gotten easier in a lot of ways, harder in some, but overall, I'm just, hate to say happy, but I'm content. I'm very content. We'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, it's fine. Happy is not a bad word. It's like we've talked in the past. It's like the problem with happy is when you chase it. Like you feel that like I always have to be, but there's nothing wrong with being happy, celebrating being happy, so.
But I think with me, I mean, the word is content.
Yeah.
Because content is where you can sit in it. It's like content is something that's sustainable for a short period of time for sure, but it's something that you can work to sustain.
Yeah.
Happy is more of a fleeting moment for me. It's, in a moment, I see the sun shining, I'm sitting by the pool, happy.
Right.
But as far as a life place, my life place right now is in contentment.
Right. Fair enough.
So, how about you, Brian?
All right, good. Finally, I can rain on this positivity parade. Jeez. No.
I know.
You know, it's never it's never my intention, but I just actually a couple days ago it really kind of clicked in my head that as much, I saw somebody on Twitter the other day that was like, woke up feeling great, canceled therapy. And I sent him a message and was like, please don't do that. Like, today is
Yeah.
absolutely the day you should go to therapy,
Yep.
even if all you do is talk about how
Yep.
happy you are or content or
Yep.
whatever your word is for the day, right?
Yep.
I was like,
Right.
please do not cancel your appointment. And I was like, the work is done now. The work isn't done when you're depressed, because it's hard to work when you're in the thick of it, And again, I'm not a doctor, therapist, blah blah blah, but I know that from my own truth on this. And I've talked with others and found, Henno is, you heard, anyone listening heard Henno as soon as I said it. Nope. If you could have seen the look on his face, it was very like, what are you doing, right? So, it did a couple things for me. One is it made me realize that I need to get back to therapy, because I have not gone to therapy in months, because my last appointment I had to cancel, and I've, as usual for me, put off making an appointment. So I finally called yesterday morning, and oddly enough, I was shocked. I'm actually going to be able to get in on the 18th of September. I figured it was going to be 2 months out, whatever. They were like, no, we actually have an appointment in the middle of the day. And I'm like, awesome, like, beautiful. I will for sure take it.
Mhm.
But also a few nights ago, I had a situation where I don't know how else to say this. I was an asshole to my mom, and that's not who I want to be. And I apologized for it. I explained my side of it. Is in that my intention was not to be a jerk, but I realized I was a jerk. Right? Not they felt I was a jerk. I 100% know I was in the wrong. I was a jerk, right? So, and that's not who I want to be. That's never who I want to be. And I realized that in a lot of ways what's happening is I'm not happy. I'm not content. I'm miserable. And what happened was I didn't realize that it crept way up on me, and then I transferred it to someone else. And that's not okay. And that's not who I want to be. So that also was another reason that I'm like, I need to get back into therapy, because I need to figure out why I'm here, because I haven't felt miserable. Miserable is not the word I would use. That is how I felt. But I don't know if and I'm not trying to pawn any blame off. I don't know if I'm taking on others' negative energy, because I've talked with various people going through negative things, or if it's my own stuff, or maybe it's a little A and B. I don't know what the mix is. And like I said, I'm not in any way trying to pawn that off onto someone else, like blaming someone else for me being a jerk, because it's my own fault. But I just realized that it can't go on this way. Like, that's not okay. And, as we've talked countless times, right? When, when you realize something is negatively affecting your life, try to find help for it. So that's, unfortunately it's still a couple weeks away, but also that's okay. At least I've got a direction, I've got a plan. And in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll be jotting notes in my phone, so that when I go into therapy, I have talking points, which is how I have always done therapy. Basically, I have at least one that's like, here's the main thing. Then if we have time, we'll get to this. Usually I don't have time, because I won't shut up. So, but I think my overall just not being able to figure out what to do with my life, not being able to get going on anything, not whatever, I think it's hitting a real head for me because I've been feeling more and more worthless and all those, all the things that depression brings. But it's weird because I haven't felt necessarily heavy. And this is a little different for me. Usually when I spiral, I feel heavy, right? Like it's hard to get out of bed. And I've been sleeping weird hours again. And I know anyone who knows me is like, you always sleep weird hours, but they're even weirder. Like I'm falling asleep at like noon, 1 o'clock, getting up at like 10:30, like at night, which that's even for me, that's a weird cycle. Usually I get up quite a bit earlier than that. So something is out of whack in my life and I need to figure out what it is. I know some of it, but I don't think it's just that because that stuff has been out of whack for 20 years. Like it shouldn't seemingly tip, so I feel like there's something else that is just not getting met. And so there it is. Yeah. So I'm going to call my win for the week, recognizing this as well as accepting my part, like realizing this is me doing this, like that, like, this isn't someone else, like full on taking, owning what I did,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to lie, this is maybe one of the hardest things I've sat here and done. I don't know if anyone, like, my voice is breaking a little bit. Like, I'm not like crying, but I don't know that I've felt this emotional about a situation having to do with my mental health maybe since I went to the doctor the first time. And that was what, 12 years ago.
One thing I will point out, are you on any mental health meds right now?
Yes.
Because
I
last time
am.
we talked, you were cutting one off.
No, I didn't end up going all the way off of it. And that is something I will for sure address, is maybe it's time to adjust it back up. Well, now, my doctor did tell me if I started feeling off that I could go ahead and do it myself, but I'd rather talk with my team first just to make sure, because, maybe it's not a higher dosage I need. Maybe it's a different medicine, blah, blah. I'll get into all that, of course. So I appreciate you asking that, though, because that is something that would be a concern if I was completely off. I feel like right now, if I was completely off medicine, I don't even know how to word it. I don't think I think I'd feel heavy. I think I'd feel really heavy, and I think I'd feel the lack of a floor. I really think that's the best way I can put it. Like, I'm not saying I would do anything or any of that, but I think I would feel the lack of a floor. So I'm very glad the floor's there right now.
And I also know, and anyone who knows you knows how important your mom is for you, into you.
Yeah.
So it's that much harder when we realize that we've been a jerk to someone we care so much for.
Right.
That it's the guilt associated with that is
immense.
So much harder.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you're just a jerk to someone you casually know, or someone, at the store or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not good. You don't want to be a jerk. But
yeah, but that's stuff where I can assess it and generally let that go pretty quick. This has been eating at me. Yeah. This is going to eat at me for a while. Yeah.
Right. It's one of those you got to sit in, and it's painful. But yeah, it's one of those you got to sit in.
Yep. And I am, because honestly, that's my penance. In ways, is that I do deserve some of that. Obviously, I don't want it to become obsessive, but
right. And it's not a whipping stick.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it is difficult because we have similar people, both putting negative energies. Bad things can happen, but I still got to do. I still got to do better.
Well, and this is a way of using it as a touchstone for growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can't be a touchdown for growth if you're not willing to own your part in it.
Right. And I did immediately. It wasn't even like the next day or a few. It was like while it was still going on. I even
That's huge.
100% was, and because I'm like,
That's huge.
this is not what I want. This is not how I
That's
want you to
huge.
feel. Yeah.
That's huge. It means that there's no justified, that's not justified resentment.
Yeah.
That's an honest appraisal.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah. Being self-aware, very self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tools in use right there.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's the thing is I see that, right? Like I get it, but it it's one of those like you see it, you get it, but it also doesn't help you make you feel a lot better, it because of the overall stuff. But I do appreciate it, yeah. And of course, I don't. This doesn't need to be said, but I'll say it anyway, which is I'm not looking for praise, right? Like in any way.
I know
but,
you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know you're not.
Yeah. I'm also not trying to deflect any. Like, it's very much, like I said, I'm very much like, hey, I screwed up. I'm going to sit in this for a little bit because I think I need to. Because, like you said, Henno, I think that, like, sitting in it becomes my touchstone. Like, I don't like this. I don't like this feeling. I don't want this.
Exactly.
Just don't let yourself linger.
Yeah. Exactly.
You got to learn and got to grow from it.
That's what true bottoms feel like.
Right. You know what? That's what it is. That's what it is. I think you just stuck a pin right in it, which is I haven't felt at bottom. And that's what I was saying is like I haven't felt that way since the journey. I don't want to say started because obviously I had depression well before I addressed it, but from that point, like I said, this is probably one of maybe not the bottom, but it's pretty close. It's definitely it may not and you can't compare them. So it's another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just means you got a lot more place to go.
Yeah. But on the other side of it, I've still been, I was in the store today, helped an older lady that was struggling with some stuff at the store, just doing what I can. I was at Aldi, which they have the quarter that goes in your cart so that you return your cart yourself so they don't have to have somebody out in the parking lot doing it, right? And when I was going through the store, the problem is they don't bag anything there, right? So they just scan it right into a cart. And I had cases of water, and I'm like, oh, I wanted those in there first because I can't so much put them on top because they'll crush everything. And the woman just did it, and I'm like, like, well, it's too late now. Let it go because what are you going to do? She's not going to. Are you going to stand here and empty everything? No, I'm not. So I just took the other cart with me. So as I'm walking out, I have two carts. And, so, and I get outside and I linked them together thinking, oh, this will be easier to push. And then I see a guy walking up. And normally what I do there is like if I were to have an extra one or like one time I didn't have a quarter and the woman there took a quarter out of her pocket and put it in there. I went back inside to try to give her quarter and she's like, I don't care. So there was a guy walking up and I'm like, here, and just gave him the cart. And I was like, whatever, if he keeps the quarter, who cares, right? So I was going to do that today, and I'm like, oh, I linked these up. I can't do that because they're linked. Like, you literally can't take them apart right now because you have to put a quarter in the one to get it out. And I was like, all right, so I kind of, but I just stood there and laughed at it. And there, was a woman that was around me that she took, there was a cart someone had left out because sometimes people just leave the carts out for someone who doesn't have a quarter. Because not everyone carries change on them anymore, right? And she decided she was going to put it back because I really think she just wanted the quarter. But so she's taking it and she's taking her time with it, and then and all this, and in my head it's just there's that voice that's like, come on, and then it's like, why are you in such a hurry? Like, what are you in such a hurry for? Like, what is 5 minutes? It's a beautiful day out today. It was like 75 and gorgeous. Like, what are you in such a hurry to get into the car for? Right? And then I was like, you know what? Thanks, voice in my head. You're right. Let me rephrase. Thanks, inner monologue, or inner dialogue, So, and I was just like, yeah, you know what? And then we kind of talked a little bit as she was walking away, and it was a very pleasant thing. So, it's just like, I appreciate the fact that I immediately was trying to get back into the kind and positive mindset, catching myself when my temper wants to take over sometimes. Like I said, not a few days ago, but today. And and just like I said, just like and going into stores and stuff frustrates me because of the anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So it's sometimes tough for me when I come out. I want to get to my safe space, right? That's usually the reason why I'm impatient, is because it's like like in my head it's going, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home. So
Yeah.
But it was just like, what do you, like I said, it's like, it's a beautiful day out. Why are you in such a hurry to get out of it? Like, what are you doing? I've gotten to where with one of my friends, she's gotten me into, taking pictures of the clouds and the moon and stuff like that. And we, send them to each other and stuff. And I forgot how much I missed that. I used to do that when my sister lived here. My sister would go out for a cigarette at night. And I'd just go outside and talk with her for a few minutes while she was having her cigarette, wrecking her peaceful moments out on the porch. Just taking it over without asking. No, but just looking up at the stars in the sky and just enjoying because where I live is really quiet at night. So it's very peaceful and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, what, it's meditation without meditating kind of a thing, and those things I think have been really good for me again. And I've forgotten how much I had gotten away from that, so like I said, even with the heavy negative, it's like I'm seeing positives, which tells me I'm still able to use my tools, which is a huge win.
Yeah.
Huge win. Right?
Absolutely.
I'm not so low that I can't use my tools. So there's that. Yep. So, and doing the show, because I'm not going to lie, the whole time we've been talking, like, this is in my head, right? And I'm sitting here going, well, if we do a topic, I should go last because I've got the topics. But also in my head, I'm going, I need to get this out of me. But all in good time, all in good time. And I love the conversation we had. I feel like the flow of that and the way things landed, I think, was better than if I had just pushed my way in the middle to do this, or at the beginning or whatever. Yeah. So I thank you guys for always providing a safe space, and same with, really, I know this is the point of the podcast, but realistically what I just did basically was trauma dump. So, a little bit.
Not really.
It is.
You let us
yeah. No. All right.
It wasn't trauma dump.
All right.
No.
All right. So, okay, fair enough. All right, I'm wrong. That's okay. But I like I said, I do want to say thank you to both of you for always, even though I know we all do it for each other, but it's still, I appreciate that this has become, well, this has always been a safe space for not just us, but the guests we've had on the show as well and stuff. So, and one last thing before we do whatever we do next is, this is our 350th episode.
Oh, you're kidding.
Wow.
No, I noticed that because I write down
awesome.
Even though I don't really focus on, like on Salty Language, I always say what the episode title is, and we don't do that on here, but it is our 350th episode, and I know it's not always been on time, and the schedule's been wonky at times and all that, but that's huge. That's a lot of episodes. So
that's a lot of episodes. Well, congratulations, you guys.
And for anyone keeping track, for me, my brag total is I'm over 1,000 now between my two shows. So, yeah, because if just the show proper, we're at 976, and we did 50 enthusiasts, and I'm on most of them. So yeah,
wow.
We're for sure over 1,000 total episodes, which is. And we just passed, with Salty Language, we just passed our 12-year mark. So it's it's a lot of
That's awesome.
yeah. So
That's insane.
that's why I wanted to put this here. Is it's a not just me, it's an us thing, but it's celebrating another win, which is doing a lot of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know if the mic's picking Mr. Milo up or not, but he's very happy for us too.
Yeah.
Milo is my cat.
Oh,
And he is purring very close to the mic. So
I
don't
thought he
know
was
if
our
it's picking up.
producer. He was giving us the wrap it up sign.
Yeah.
It's kind of ready for bed.
Right.
And he's kind of mad that I'm not heading there.
Right.
But yeah. Ouch. With his nails.
Yeah.
Anywho, so I guess this is a good time as any to do our wrap up a bit here. So folks, we covered a lot tonight, a lot of positivity, a lot that we're working through and working on, and as well as some hopefully inspirational conversations around our passions. But ultimately, we want to hear from you. So please reach out to us. We'd love to hear your questions, concerns, comments, all of the above. You can reach us at the Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com is our email address. Our website is thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. And if you would like to reach me direct, go ahead and just shoot me an email and just say, hey, Jen, and I will absolutely respond. Henno, how can they reach you?
Pretty much you can track me down on Facebook and Instagram. I haven't been on that other site too much lately. Yeah.
You mean you're not all over Blue Sky and Threads and stuff like I am?
No, yeah, kind of not at all.
Yeah, that's the better move. Much better move.
Sounds good. And you, Brian?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to pull up the list of things I have here. You can find me on said social networks at Stunami for the most part. You can find the other podcast I have, which is called Salty Language, at salty_language on Twitter. Or at saltylanguage.com. Jeez, I'm just like, yeah. That show is not safe for work, so please be careful who you're listening to it with. And on the last episode, we talked about wrestling death matches, the Weather Channel, American Gladiators documentary that was recently, well, it's been out for a little while now, but Gentle Giant's dog food, which has got one of the weirdest packaging I've ever seen, and it made the graphic designer in me cry. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, this week we'll probably be talking about Ahsoka, the new Star Wars show, and a lot of WWE related deaths this week. So
Really?
yeah. Terry Funk passed away. Bray Wyatt, who was a younger guy, he was only 36. He passed away. And I mean, Bob Barker passed away. He hosted WWE at least once. It was really good. And also, another one I'm going to talk about is Arlene Sorkin passed away. She was the voice of Harley Quinn on the Batman the Animated Series, and the inspiration for she was the inspiration for the character Harley Quinn. Because she used to play on a soap opera, and she had a character on there named Calliope Jones. And I remember that from when I was a little kid, because it was on, I think it was Days of Our Lives. And my mom used to watch it. And I remember the woman had it. It didn't click in my head for a long time, that it was her. And because I'm like, man, I know that name, and then I looked her up and I was like, oh, it's her. That is like, I remember her having a weird voice back on that show. I guess there's a dream sequence on the soap opera where she's in a clown costume, basically. And that's the inspiration for the original Harley Quinn, which was introduced, on Batman the Animated Series and the comics and stuff. So, yeah. So we're going to, I'm sure, get into a bunch of that, because a lot of that has to do with our geekdom and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah.
Heck yeah.
If you're into any of that stuff, that episode will be up soon. This show can also be found on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. Our Facebook group is facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows there. I think, that looks like all the links, I think. So, with that, if you need help, please reach out. Whether it's, to us, family members, whatever, there's people out there willing to help you. You just got to, ask for help and be patient. Also, I know sometimes there's long waits with some of this stuff, and that's really frustrating, but please be patient and, keep trying. And also, please check on your friends if they're going through a rough patch, or even if they're not. Doesn't even have to be a rough patch, but And then, of course, as we talked already a little bit about, is please put kindness out there and just please try to be nice to other people, especially strangers, that absolutely won't be expecting it from you probably. So many people now feel conditioned that everyone's awful, and it's just not the case. You look at how many people have volunteered for the fires in Maui or whatever. I mean, there are firefighters from here in Ohio there helping to fight the fires, So, and all sorts of stuff, donations, all that kind of thing. So like I said, when the chips are down and you really look at people, you really see how much good is being done by a lot of people out there. And yeah, there's a bunch of ninnies out there doing dumb stuff too, but focus on the good if you can.
Absolutely. And if we're going to sum up this show, I would say it's okay to be okay, and it's okay not to be okay. What's not okay is not sharing either with the world. So go out there, have the best weeks you can possibly have, and don't forget, wiggle those toes.